Hey guys, we're in Chapter 9, Section 1, and so we are constructing confidence intervals in Chapter 9. Section 1 is doing population proportions. Section 2 is doing population means. So when we're doing this, like, we have no idea what the population proportion is, but we are going to give it a good guess, a good interval which we think that we're in. And we're going to say something like, I am 95% confident that the population proportion is between this and this. So to do this with our technology, with StatCrunch, I'm going to go to Stats, and then in Section 1 we're doing proportions, so proportion statistics. In Chapter 9 we are just doing one sample stuff. Now, we have the option of doing it with data or with summary. For proportions, most of the time we will be given a summary of information. If we were given a whole bunch of yes, no's, no, no, yes, yes, we would actually use the data. But if we're just given what our sample size is and how many people said yes or answered the survey question a particular way, we would be doing with summary. So all I have to do is type in the number of successes, which in this case we have 160. Our sample size, or number of observations, would be 200, and we're looking to be 95% confident. So, looking at our StatCrunch, if we look at this, now I've forgotten the numbers. 160 and 200. So 160, number of observations is 200. And we are performing a confidence interval. And we want it to be 95%. And we're going to stay with this current method. Again, there's different ways of doing a confidence interval. The one that we're going to use is this standard walled. You can read more in the book. It's about the guy who came up with this particular way of finding confidence intervals. And now I hit compute, and this lower limit and upper limit, those are my confidence intervals. So with my information of 160 people said yes out of the 200, I am 95% confident that the population proportion is in between roughly 74% and 86%. So that's where I think the numbers around. The population proportion is going to be somewhere in between these values. And then I am 95% confident. So we can type those in 0.3 decimal places. So I'm looking at 0.745 and 855. 745 and 855. Fantastic. So that's what we're doing with the proportions. Towards the end of this section, they are asking about sample size, the number of people that we need to survey in order to be within some margin of error. There's some formulas in your book, and they're on page 400. And this is how you determine sample size when you're looking at a population proportion. If you have a previous proportion, you would use this one. So that's your p hat, your x over n. That's your previous information that you have out there. E stands for your margin of error, and z, alpha over 2, will help us figure out our level of confidence. So if we want to be 95% confident, our alpha would be 5%, and we divide that by 2, so that would be 2.5%. So we just want to find the z value for 2.5%. Let's do that real quick. If we go back to our StatCrunch, and if I want to find out what my z alpha over 2 is, I'm going to do stat calculator, normal calculator. It's the stuff you're doing in Chapter 7. Again, I'm looking at a z-score, so my mean's 0, my standard deviation's 1. And I just want to find what my z value would be for 2.5%. So that's my Z alpha over 2 for a 95% confidence interval. So negative 1.96 or positive 1.96. Either one would be fine, because you square it, it's going to be positive. So those are the formulas you're going to need to figure out sample size. There's no way to do it on StatCrunch. Or actually, let me check. There might be a way to do that. If we look at our proportion statistics, one sample, here's a sample size. So we actually can do it. Find our sample size. And we need to hit confidence interval width to do that. And so, like that last question just asked us, let's see if I can move this around a little bit better. Like if we wanted to have a 95% confidence interval, target proportion, that's something that we already knew. So let's say that we knew something was 30% before. It was 30 out of 100 people in the past did this. If I want to be within 3 percentage points, that means I'd be plus or minus 3%, so to actually have to do 6%. It will calculate what my sample size needs to be. It would say that I need 897 people in my sample. So with proportions, you're going to get pretty large samples. But that was under confidence interval width. So hopefully this gives you a head start on the Chapter 9, Section 1 stuff. Again, you can use the formulas to figure out sample size, but there also is this tool. If we don't know what our target proportion is, we're going to assume 50%, and everything else would be done the same. If I wanted to be within 3%, I would say 0.06, because that's 3% to the left, 3% to the right. That's my width, and I could compute my sample size this way. Again, this one would be a larger 1068. Or you could use the formulas, but I'm going to suggest using the StatCrunch calculator. It works just the same, and there's less that you have to find. This is the one you would use if you do not have anything to base it off of. This is the one if you have prior information. Have a good day.